Hey, have you heard about my AI alter ego? That's right. Ask Alan Anything is now live, and we've trained it on my 13 books. We've trained it on over 200 podcasts. It has most of what's in here, not everything, but most of what's in here. And you can, when you're sitting around going, gee, I wonder what Alan would do in this situation, or I wonder what Alan would say in this situation. Well, now you can. Go to whatwouldallansay.com. Enter the coupon code podcast because you're going to get half off. It starts at only $10 a month. And now when you're thinking, I wonder what Alan say, now you can actually ask. Go to whatwouldallansay.com, enter the coupon code podcast, and start asking me anything. Are we living in a marketing theme park or a marketing funnel? Listen to this episode. See what I'm talking about. Welcome to another episode of the Wedding Business Solutions Podcast. I'm your host, Alan Berg. I'm a speaker, author, sales trainer, website reviewer, and I help businesses like yours sell more, profit more, and have more fun doing it. Enjoy this episode. Hi, it's Alan Berg. Welcome back to another episode of the Wedding Business Solutions Podcast. I am so happy to have my friend Becca Pountney on to talk about marketing theme parks. Becca, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you? Good to see you.
Good to see you again from across the pond. I will see you. I will be back over in the fall again. So I'll hopefully get to see you when I'm over there. But we're going to talk about marketing theme parks. But before we get into that, just tell everybody real quick, what do you do?
So I'm Becca Pountney. I'm based here in the UK. I'm often referred to as the UK's leading wedding industry marketing expert. And so I help wedding business owners and venues of all sizes here in the UK and further afield get more visible and market their businesses and stop being the best kept secret.
There we go. There we go. You help them get more inquiries and I help them sell more. And that's why it works so well together. So when I asked you what we want to talk about, and you said, everybody used to speak about marketing funnels, but now it's a marketing theme park. So fill us in, please. I love this picture that I'm putting in my head, but tell me why we're talking theme park instead of funnel.
So forever, we've been talking about this marketing funnel, whether you're in universities, whether you go to Stage Talk, I'm sure everyone here is rolling their eyes and they say, yeah, heard about that a million times before. And I started doing a bit of digging because marketing is my thing. And I found out, do you know when the marketing funnel was first invented? It was 1904. Ooh. 1904. And I just could not believe that we're still teaching this marketing concept that was first developed a long time ago in a world which looks very, very different to the world we find ourselves here in 2026 and beyond. Yeah. And so I started thinking to myself, what is going on here? This is crazy. Why are we still teaching this way of marketing when we haven't lived in that world for quite some time? And then Google were talking about this concept called the messy middle. So they were starting to talk about how the marketing funnel was shifting and it was becoming this messy middle. But I didn't like the sound of messy middle. So I came up with my own concept, which I think perfectly describes the landscape for marketing in general, and particularly in our wedding industry, which was the marketing theme park. Because I don't know when the last time was that you went to a theme park, Alan, but I love a theme park and they're loud, they're noisy, the lights are flashing, there's choices everywhere. Everyone takes a different route through the theme park. And I think that perfectly describes the wedding planning marketing process right now in 2026.
Oh, absolutely. All the distractions and they look like they're having fun there. So I need to go there too. And all those things. I love it. I love it. I had not heard that, but I hope you have copyrighted that or trademarked that or something like that, because you definitely need to. So let's just step back a bit. So the marketing funnel concept was first from 1904. Okay. Do you remember who started it or what was the business they were in or?
Yeah, so Frank Hutchinson, as far as I can tell, because it is woolly, is the guy who first came up with this very basic marketing funnel. And then over time, people have added to it and improved it and changed it. But it's still this funnel concept. And I used to do a stage talk where I talked about, let's go back to 1999 and remember how we used to buy. And when I was a very, very young in 1999, we'd watch a TV commercial and it had our full attention because we couldn't skip through it. It was just on the screen. It would tell us something like, you need to buy this Sony Walkman. And it was really cool. And you thought, yeah, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. And so that was you going through the marketing funnel. And you're like, Mom, I need to buy the Sony Walkman. Take me to the one store that I can buy the Sony Walkman in. And I go through this funnel and I buy it. But actually, now in 2026, we know that people can't even watch the adverts without also looking at their phone or fast forwarding through it or
Mhm.
scrolling and looking at something else. And so it's not the same anymore. It's not a funnel. It's not a clear cut one route direction. And also, people are buying from everywhere. It's not just
Yeah.
that TV advert, it's radio advertising, podcasts, social media. The list goes on and on.
Yeah, I mean, my wife and I will sit. We have our evening ritual. So after we turn off the telly, we do some games on my iPad. The New York Times has these games, so Wordle and some games. And then it's turn it off, and then she wants to go look at Instagram, and she calls it babies and puppies, right? So she just wants to see babies and puppies. We actually have a new grandson, so there's a lot of baby stuff that shows up because as soon as you click on something about a baby, it's going to go showing up there. But what's interesting is very often an ad will come up and we're curious, is this a real product? Is this like a good thing or whatever? So then we leave Instagram, we do our research. We might go to Amazon because we figure maybe our recourse is better if we buy it on Amazon. And like you said, I saw it here on one side, but then all of a sudden I'm over there and then going someplace else and going someplace else and down this rabbit hole and all those things. It's part of that paradox of choice, which is you want to see all the choices, but then my gosh, you can't decide when you've seen all the choices because there's just way too many choices. So what are you saying to wedding professionals in terms of, okay, you just understand the distraction, right? Like you walked into the theme park and it's like, it all looks like so much fun. And look, they're all having fun over here. How do you coach them on how to navigate this?
Yeah, so once we understand we're living in a marketing theme park world, we need to realize, okay, well, if we know that and we acknowledge that, how do we then stand out in that crowd? Because just shouting louder isn't necessarily going to help. So the first thing I say is you've got to find a reason to stand out. So again, if you imagine yourself at the front of a theme park, any theme park, the gate opens, everyone goes in a different direction for very different reasons. So some people will go to the biggest ride, some people go to the shortest queue, some people will go right to the back of the park because they think everyone else will be at the front. Some people go to the place that's the closest, and some people will say, I'm going to stop and have a coffee before I do anything else. So everyone's taken a different route, everyone's made a different choice, but there's something that's made them make that choice. And so I say to the vendors, when someone gets engaged, they're going to go into this marketing theme park. They're going to look for venues, photographers, florists. They are going to see every single florist from all over the world bombarding them. So you need to know what makes you stand out. What's the reason they're going to come to you over any one of your competitors? And it's no longer just happening to live close to your house. You've got to have something to stand on.
So besides that,
That's the first place I would start is what makes you different? If I ask you, can you give me a compelling reason? Or are you just saying everyone else?
yeah, you actually froze there for just a couple of seconds in the beginning, but we got that part of it. So, how, as a vendor, do you decide which of those places that you want to be? Because I talk about it differently. I say there's four steps to more sales: getting their attention, getting the inquiry, having a conversation, making the sale, right? So you call them funnels, whatever, but if we don't have their attention, right? So like you said, what attracted them to go to this ride or go to this direction or whatever. But as a vendor, you can't be everywhere, right? Nobody's got unlimited budget, so you can't be everywhere. So how do you decide? I want to be over here, so when they go to the back of the park, I'm going to be there. Or I want to be in the coffee shop or whatever. How do you decide?
Okay, so once you know what you stand for and what makes you different, you
Mhm.
need to work out, and you'll know this, Alan, who you're for and where they're hanging out. Number one, very important. So, not just what everyone else says, but have you done a bit of market research? Do you know where your ideal customers are spending their time? And very importantly, and I've been talking about this a lot recently, and it's not necessarily the most exciting thing, is are you looking at your data? Because so often I will talk to clients and they'll say, I need to be on TikTok, or I need to be on Instagram, or I need to be on Google. And I say, well, where did your bookings come from last year? And they say, wedding shows. I say, well, why are we not doing more wedding shows then? Why are you not looking at your data?
Right.
And so, not only do you need to know where people are hanging out, but you need to see what's worked for you in the past And sometimes less is more, doubling down and doing things that worked previously rather than just thinking, I need the shiny new thing. Because as business owners, we're also lost in the theme park. And so we
Yeah.
see the shiny stuff on social media and it pulls us in all these directions with false promises. And actually, we have the data in front of us. Look at your own data. That's really important.
Well, we could have the data in front of us. And I think that's something that you've come across, and I certainly come across all the time, is it's not that the vendors don't want to have the data and don't want to know it. A lot of them don't collect it. And it's actually a chapter in my new book, AI for the Real World, garbage in, garbage out. If you don't have the data, you can't analyze it. That's it. And the data that I wish people would have, it's not that it's impossible to get. It takes some work setting up the collection points so you can know that. For instance, there's an AI that I'm helping with, which is Venue X AI, which is AI for venues that responds to the inquiries, has the conversation, books the tour. And when they were building the dashboard, I said, I need you to build in inquiry to conversation, conversation to tour, tour to booking, right? Because inquiry to conversation shows you your ghosting percentage. So if you're getting 50% of the people to respond to you, you're getting ghosted 50% of the time. And most people have no idea because they go inquiry to booking, right? That's what they track is inquiry to booking. But they don't know what their percentage of ghosting is from this source or their percentage of sales are from this source. So could you have that data? Yeah. Like, do you know where your inquiries came from? Right. It's not perfect data because, like I said, I'll go on Instagram, see something, buy it on Amazon, right? And they don't know that. They don't because they're not connected. They're not connected at all in there. So, what data, if we could, wave a magic mouse, okay, what data would you want to have? So, if you were that wedding florist, what data would you like them to have?
So I'm a big fan of a monthly KPI. So with some of my clients at the end of a month, I will give them a whole list of things I want them to go and look at. So things like, have you looked at your Google Analytics recently? Do you even have Google Analytics installed? And if you've got it installed, have you looked at it? Do you know how many people are coming to your website? And does it show you where they're coming from? Have you looked at that acquisition place? Because again, that can tell you so many things. I had a client who said to me, I've been posting all the time on Instagram. It's doing nothing. I'm going to stop. So I said, well, just a moment before you stop, let's look in your Google Analytics and see where people are coming from. And organic social and Instagram was her second highest source after Google. And so I said, well, all that work you're doing, you think it's not doing anything
Right.
because they may not be engaging there, but they're coming to you from there. So
Right.
definitely Google Analytics, 100%.
Right.
Secondly, social media traffic. Are you looking at your social media stats, not the vanity statistics, but actually how many people are clicking your link, how many people are seeing your content, how long are they engaged in your content? Just it doesn't need to take you a long time. I
Right.
would say maximum 30 minutes at the end of a month to go through this stuff. Then look at how many inquiries did you get in this month? And I say you can either track that very roughly by I got 5 inquiries, or you can do it numerically. I got £5,000 worth of inquiries. And how many did you convert out of the five?
Right.
I had 5 inquiries. I converted two. Right
Yeah.
now, we've got some numbers to work with. And this is basic stuff, but I'd rather people did the basics than
Mhm.
had nothing.
Yeah, I actually had a consultation earlier today and I said, so how much of your traffic is mobile? And she said, I don't know. She said, my husband might know, but I don't know. I said, and I've done podcasts about this, spoken about the three things I want you to know. So just what you said, like, where is your traffic coming from? And, your biggest source of traffic may not be your biggest source of business. Just because you get a lot of traffic doesn't mean it's converting. I said, what pages are they looking at? Because you might have all this great stuff on your website and find out nobody's going there. Okay. And then, uh, so, so how much time are they spending, right? Because if they're not spending a lot of time, then that's it. And what happened with this particular client is she said, we have our price on the website, and yet everybody's reaching out and asking how much. And I knew what the problem was before I even looked. And I go to look at the website, I go to the page, the wedding page, and I had to scroll so far down to find the pricing. And then I switched it to a mobile view, and of course, it's much further down now because all those pictures that were side by side are stacked up now or whatever. And I scrolled, I don't know, 9, 10 times. And I said, and she goes, oh, that's really far down. I said, right. So you think you're being transparent. And we'll probably find that this page is viewed a lot. But if we did heat mapping, which you don't have to do, but to show you how far down they're getting, nobody's scrolling 10 times. Like nobody's scrolling on their phone 10 times to get down there. So we found some of the issues. We reworded it. We actually used AI to update the wording, put the pricing not at the very top, make them read a little bit, right? But much, much closer. So now it's like the third scroll instead of the ninth or 10th scroll there. But go look and see, is anybody even looking at the pages, right? I mean, it'll tell you that on analytics. And I'm not talking about the crazy stuff there that Google Analytics has. I always say it's like sitting in a cockpit of an airplane. Fuel, got it. Okay. Altimeter, how high we are. We're not upside down, the horizon. The rest of it, I have no idea what's going on there, right? There you go. So that's easy data, right? That's the easy data over there. The harder data is connecting the dots, right? Because I got the lead, my website shows I got a lead. Now, how do I know that lead came from that source, right? That's where it becomes a little bit harder, right?
Yeah, it does. But at the same time, there's other points where we can ask them those questions
Right.
on contact forms. Again, they don't always know the answer, but we might as well
Yeah.
get some data because then we can start to see some patterns or just ask them. Sometimes people just forget in a conversation, hey, where did you find me?
Yeah.
And often people will say, oh, you kept popping up on social media. Oh,
Mhm.
I heard you on this podcast. And it may not be the answer you think, but
Right.
often people will tell you something, just note it down.
Yeah. And if you're going to have a drop down or something on your website, if you can randomize it so that, because if people always choose the first thing on the list, you have to be really suspicious. Is that really the answer? You made me answer, so I just took the first thing on the list, and there you go. You want to have that in there. So having visibility to the data, and I always caution people, don't look at just today and don't look at this week. You have to look over time. Is it increasing? Is it decreasing? Is it seasonal, right? I get more leads in January because people got engaged around the holidays, so I'm getting more leads there. And then don't freak out in March when it's dropped down because it's not engagement season, right? And then based upon your business, do they book you 6 months out, 8 months out, 9 months out, 15 months out, and things like that? So let's go back to understanding their avatar. Like, who is my ideal customer? Give them some ideas on how they can identify them because you can't hit a target you can't see. So, you know, engaged couples is not a good description of your ideal customer, right?
I find that people go one of two ways in this. They either go anyone who's getting married, or they have the most complicated description of the person, the name, the age that they don't ever do anything with. And I think
Right.
sometimes there's a happy medium somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
I often say to my clients when they get spun out about this, just think about some of the people you've worked with in the past that paid the right price, that were easy to work with, that you loved working at their wedding, and just base it around that. And often our ideal clients are kind of a version of ourselves because that's why we get on with them. That's why we relate to them. But again, there's no point doing this big long list of 27 different attributes just for the sake of doing it. My book is well out. It's called Done is Better Than Perfect. I'm very much of that mantra of let's
Yeah.
just get it done. Let's not spend so long worrying about the avatar. Let's actually just explore. So that would be my little hint, though, is just think about the people you've worked with recently, the ones that you really liked, and let's work out how can we replicate those.
Right. If you could choose your customer, right, just make them appear. Who are they? How old are they? Where do they come from? What do they like? I break it down to three things. So, geographics, where do they live? Okay. And then you have demographics, which are measurable things. They are this age. I love working with couples from this area, couples that went to this uni. I love couples that, again, maybe like you said, people like yourself. So maybe they're the same religion, maybe they're the same race, maybe there's something about them that, right? And then there's psychographics, right? Maybe you love dogs and you love people who love dogs, and that's a psychographic thing. Is I connect with you because of these things. So if you can put those together and make your avatar, then you say, okay, well, where do they hang out now? Maybe they're not on TikTok. Maybe they're on Instagram. Maybe they're on Pinterest. Maybe they're on Facebook. People keep asking me why I don't post on TikTok. I'm like, because you're not looking for me there. You might be on there looking, and maybe your couples are, but you're not looking for me. I don't know if they're looking for you, but I get even very little Instagram interaction, like you said. Just because they're not doing anything doesn't mean they're not lurking, right? But I get my most interaction on Facebook, a little bit on LinkedIn, a little bit more on Instagram. I'm not going to bother with TikTok, just another place just to post, just to do that. And I have an assistant, so it's not like it's taking my time, but still, I don't want to waste her time either.
And I think the misconception people have when we start talking about these avatars as well is that when we think about these people and then we think about marketing, that makes sense. But then people panic and they say, well, what if this person inquires and they don't look like my avatar? Should I turn them away? And I'm like, no, we need to understand the difference between marketing and sales. That's not the same thing. One
Right.
of the examples I often talk about is Coca-Cola, right? Diet Coke was very much marketed towards women. The adverts in the 90s, going back to the 90s, were all about men and how you drink a Diet Coke and you attract these men. And actually, I then say to people, so they were marketing at women, but does that mean my husband can't go to the shop and buy a Diet Coke?
Right.
Of course he can.
Hmm.
And so we have to understand the difference. We might be marketing ourselves, shouting these messages, trying to reach these ideal couples. But if someone who doesn't fit that type is willing to pay your price, please don't turn them away.
Right. And if you think about the people you've done business with already, they're not all that avatar, and it doesn't mean they're not a good customer. As long as they liked you liked them, and you wanted to help them have an amazing wedding day, then that's good. I think what we've seen, if you again go back to before 1999, they used to run the same advert everywhere, right? But now you'll see an advert for the same company with pretty much the same message, but the people in it look different because the people from that show that they're trying to, attract. Or my wife will have something on. She plays these a lot of YouTube music and stuff like that. And some of these adverts will come on in Spanish because she's been listening to this kind of Latin music thing. And now the adverts in Spanish, which it should be because it's a good chance that audience, not her, but there's a good chance that that audience, that's what it's for. I also love that we're seeing real people, right? We're not all seeing these beautiful 6 foot tall, size zero models and whatever. We're seeing real people, and we're seeing interracial couples, and we're seeing just the beauty of the world represented there. I just had somebody at one of my events, and they design and manufacture wedding dresses for plus size brides, right? And yes, all brides are not 6 foot tall, size zero. Thank you very much. Let's have a dress for you that looks beautiful. And I think it's just wonderful to see that. I also caution everybody listening, go give yourself a reality check. Go to your website. Did you only put, people that look a certain way when your real customers look different? And I get it. I have some areas of the country where everybody looks kind of the same, right? And not the same as another area, the same as the people in your area. Well, great, then they show that because that's what they look like. But if you live where I live, oh my gosh, I walk out and it looks like a Benetton ad. I mean, there's everybody here. Therefore, you should be showing that in your adverts because people want to see themselves.
Yeah, and that's what's going to make you stand out to those people because they want to see themselves in your marketing. And
Yeah.
exactly like we say, those cheesy adverts we hear on Instagram, I get them. I don't know if you get them, Alan, where it's like, are you a woman with children who's 39 years old? And you're like, how do you know? And people, but you immediately take notice, even though we know from a marketing brain, it's probably AI, it's probably fixed. But something about being seen
Yeah.
makes you take notice. I had a photographer client a few years back, and I often use him as an example. He said he was the photographer for people that didn't like having their photos taken, people who didn't look the norm.
Mhm.
And he asked me to do a review of his website. And I said, how come your website looks like everyone else then? Why have you got all the thin blonde people on your website? You just told me you're for these other kind of people.
Yeah.
So he totally transformed his imagery. He went and got real people, all sorts of different sizes, shapes, genuine couples. And guess what? His business increased because he was attracting the people that didn't want to have their photos taken. Whereas the people that didn't want to have their photos taken were not attracted to the people that didn't look like them.
Right. And his messaging it should be just that, right? If you hate you're having your photo taken, you're in the right place. Well, let me get comfy now because I need to sit here. Yeah, that's beautiful. It just it's out when you say it out loud, it sounds so simple, right? And then people go back and they look and go, "Oh, wait a minute, you're right." But you know what you just described is the curse of knowledge, right? He knew what was on his website. He put it there, but you needed somebody like you to look at it from the outside and go, "Really?" Because that doesn't match what you just told me. So that's not exactly that. So let's I want to change channels here just for a second. You recently put on an event for wedding pros in the UK.
Yes, I did. Wed Pros Live. It was very exciting. It was very fun, and there was a whole lot of Becca energy in the room.
I can't imagine that at all. uh, so that was your first time doing that event?
Yep, so it's my first ever industry conference. I've been and spoken at all these different industry
Right.
conferences, and I was like, I need something that's got more Becca energy here in the UK because I go to the States and I love the energy, and sometimes in the UK, Alan, we're a little bit boring and we're a little bit straight-laced. And so I decided, let's bring something different. Let's bring some of my friends. Let's do something different here in the UK. And we had a blast. Just to give you a picture, the
Mhm.
day started with a video me in a pink sparkly dress running down the aisle to a Spice Girl track and then talking about marketing. And it just went from there and it ended with a Becca themed sparkly cocktail. So it couldn't have been more fun and Becca if we tried. But the most important thing was people connected, people had fun, people came open to learn, and they've walked away taking action.
Fantastic. I was watching from afar on your social media, all that, and I saw the sparkly dress and all. So, what did you learn? Because you're on the other side then, right? Because you've been on, like me, you've been on the stages, you've been going to all these different conferences. What did you learn from the other side?
That the thing that made it stand out and the thing that worked was thinking about the details of the experience. So I knew that I wanted to give people the details. I talk about it, and you probably do too. People talk about how they're made to feel, they remember what they saw, all of those things. And so for me, the learning was how can I take those things and make people feel seen in that big environment? So from every single speaker, what makes it good for a speaker, having your confidence monitor, having someone mic you up, through to what makes it good as an attendee. So we had a program that had one page was the name of the speaker and the other page they could write notes. And so that all of their notes could be kept next to the information about the speaker, the QR code to get their freebie. And it was all of those little details that really made the difference. And that's what people noticed, I think. And also just the fact that you can be authentically yourself. Like no one else could have pulled off Wed Pros Live in the way that Becca Pountney did because they're not Becca Pountney. And
Right.
if they did, it wouldn't work. If Alan Berg danced down the aisle in a pink sparkly dress to the Spice Girls, people might look twice. But in
They would notice.
2026, we got to be ourselves, and
Right.
that's absolutely fine, right? And some people will love it, some people won't, and that's fine because I'll find my people in the same way the wedding businesses have got to find what they stand for to find their people.
That's a great lesson. Being authentically you, and the people that are attracted to that are your people. And the people that are not your people. And it's not that you're trying to exclude them, but they're just not attracted to that. Very much like if you go fishing and you drop a certain type of bait in, some fish are attracted to it and some fish aren't attracted to it. They're still there. They're swimming around. They're just not your people. And that's wonderful. I love it. Now, if you do it again, I notice I said if, because sometimes it's painful. What would you do differently?
That's another great question. I am going to do it again in 2027. I've already sold a third of the tickets, so I now have to do it again. So it is happening. What would I do differently? I don't know. There was a lot of
Okay.
things I liked. Obviously, there's always room for improvement.
Mhm.
One thing was I feel like I needed more screens so that people at the back could see better.
Okay.
But on the whole, I think for me, the challenge is keeping it fresh and
Yeah.
keeping it exciting and keeping it moving forward because it's easy to do an exciting first event because it's new.
Yeah.
It's harder to keep that momentum going. And yeah, I think that's it. Like being on top of your game and leading the pack. The same for these wedding business owners. If you're listening to this, it's easy to come out with a new idea, but it's harder to keep on evolving and staying ahead when everything around you is changing.
It's like a debut album. You just had your debut album, and debut albums are authentic to the artist because you wrote the music. It's you. It hopefully not overproduced and all because you didn't have the money, right? So you could so you just put it out there, and now can you keep the you? And I say this as a speaker. I am me wherever. I'm me because you and I have had coffee together and we've hung out. And I'm no different than the guy on stage, right? You're no different than the person on stage. But that's hard for a lot of people because they get on a stage and they're like, I'm on stage. People are looking at me. What do I do? Right? And you're not authentically you. You need to be authentically you in your marketing. You need to be authentically on your website. You need to be authentic in your messaging. This is what I'm teaching people with AI, how to be more authentically them with AI as opposed to making it not sound like them at all because they're eventually going to meet you. And you better be you when they meet you, right? You better be that same person there. So it's, yeah, I love the fact that you're going to do it again. I love the fact that you pre-sold a third of the tickets. Kudos. That is absolutely wonderful. You know, events, you've attended events, I've attended events, and I think you had a unique perspective because I'm not putting on any big events like that. I do my workshops and things like that. But we do see things differently. Like you talked about the confidence monitors, or when I was in London last year with you at a certain event, I did a 3 hour workshop. I walked in, I said, "Oh, where's my lavalier? Where's my ear set?" And they handed me a handheld mic for a 3 hour workshop. And, I, like you, talk with my hands, and all of a sudden one hand can't talk. It's got to hold over here. It's like, really? Really? I mean, you knew that I was doing this. And of course, did I tell them I wanted to laugh? Of course I did. Right. And do I have one I could have brought? Well, no, because it's US power. But anyway, we could have done that. Um, so you're doing it again. How many days?
One day at the moment. It's one
Okay.
day at the moment. I'm
Okay.
committing to one, but I'm growing it bigger. So the last event in March, I had a capacity 184 people in the room. Every single place was taken. There was a
Beautiful.
waiting list, which is why I already planned 2027. We're expanding capacity to 200 plus. And yeah, over time, I would love to see a multi-day event. I absolutely love Wedding MBA in Las Vegas. I think the team there are incredible. I advertised them in my program. I chatted with them because they said they're not interested in coming to Europe right now. So there is a space right now
Yes.
for a decent sized wedding industry conference in Europe. And I hope over the next 5, 10 years that I can learn from the amazing things they're doing. And what I love about Wedding MBA is they put education at the top. So if people are paying, I think if people are paying, if a vendor is coming for a day out of their business, they need to have the top of the top education. They don't want to just have a load of rubbish that they could have found on the internet. And so for me, I think that's my perspective as both a speaker and attendee is how can we give maximum value for people's time and also get them out of their houses, away from their
Right.
computers and meeting each other.
And was this in London that you did it? Yeah.
Yes, Central London. We did it this year at the Royal Horse Guards Hotel, just
Mhm.
off Trafalgar Square. And next year, we are overlooking Tower Bridge at the Tower Hotel.
Beautiful, beautiful. One thing, if you haven't noticed it, Wedding MBA is cutting a day shorter, and a bunch of the conferences in the States that are multiple days are cutting a day off. And a part of it is cost. Part of it is the investment of time of people to come. It's not just the money, but the time. Like my National Speakers Association conference, it's costing the same, but it's a day shorter, which is fine, right? It's just the way that we're concentrating the content in there. But Wedding MBA is cutting a day down. It's just easier for people, not necessarily the cost of the travel and all that, but it's just easier. What I've found is that local people have trouble going to a multiple day event because there's so much pulling them back to home, especially if they're not staying at a hotel nearby, because you have kids and it's like, oh, the kids stuff and whatever. I can't do 2 days. I can't do that. But when you fly to Las Vegas, or if you go somewhere, you're already away. So it's really it's what happens. And then it's also the draw. Vegas is a draw for a lot of people, not for me, but for a lot of people. I've been saying when I stop going to Vegas for work, you will never see me in that town again. And I have some friends there. Maybe I would go visit my friends, but there's no draw for that for me. It's like Orlando and Disney, like you said, the theme park. Maybe when my grandkids get older, maybe I'll take them there. But for myself, no, there's just too much going on there. If people want to find out more about you, where should they go?
Best place to find me is my website, beccapountney.com. I'm sure Alan will link to it in the show notes because that's a difficult surname to spell. Or just connect with me on Instagram. I love to chat. It is absolutely me in my DMs. It's not an assistant, it's not a virtual assistant. So if you've got
Yeah.
a question, want to chat, drop into my DMs and we can chat there.
I love that. I've had people messaging me, and then I respond, and they say, "Is this the real Alan, or is it's not my Ask Alan alter ego? No, it's really me, and it's really you." She actually does answer. I can vouch for that over there. And then the information about the conference is on your website as well.
Yeah, so all of the information about the conference is on my website, or you can go to wedproslive.com for the latest information.
Perfect, perfect. Well, I maybe you want to get it away from home, cross the pond, go there. I know people listening from the UK and Ireland and other parts of Europe. We have a lot of people in the US. You want to go to London, especially overlooking the Tower Bridge. I mean, that's what a beautiful place to be over there. That sounds
Yeah,
wonderful.
it's pretty iconic. And we did have some people come from the States this year, from venues in the States, because they wanted an excuse to come and visit London and they could make it a business trip.
Exactly, exactly. Well, Becca, thanks so much for joining me. Thanks everybody for listening. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Wedding Business Solutions podcast. If you liked it, please subscribe to this channel and post a review on your chosen platform, Apple Podcasts or whichever one. If you have any questions about anything in this episode or any of my episodes, email me directly at alan@weddingbusinesssolutions.com or visit my website, alanberg.com, alanberg.com. If you have any suggestions for future topics or guests that you'd like to see, please again, email me or visit my website. Thanks for listening.